We are now live on YouTube. Madam Chair, it looks like we have a quorum.
Thank you all so much for being here this morning virtually. I know there was some confusion, but I appreciate everyone's flexibility. I apologize if you hear the weed whacker outside of my office. That's how it works, right? Once a week. Ms. Mueller, do you mind pulling the agenda up?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't get your email yet. Just to let you know.
Yeah, I haven't been able. The picture just came through. If I'm not able to get it to you, that's fine. Or maybe
Okay.
I could just share my screen real quick.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. So welcome to the meeting. I don't have the agenda pulled up. Do you mind scrolling up just a little bit? Thank you. So again, this meeting was changed to be a virtual meeting. Again, appreciate your accommodation of that. It has been advertised as such, and we do advertise the ability for people to participate through watching YouTube, and it's recorded and shared later, and also how to provide comments. Ms. Mueller, if you could go ahead and do the roll call and certify the quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Tarn of Ashland, Chair Amos.
Here.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Walker.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Campbell. Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Here.
Mr. Flagg.
Here.
Henrico County, Ms. Meidler.
Here.
Mr. Yor. New Kent County, Vice Chair LeDuc.
Here, good morning.
Good morning, Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine.
Here.
Mr. Pompey. City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Bridewell. Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge.
Here.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Here.
Mr. Sparks. GRTC Transit System, Ms. Torres.
Here.
Ms. Del Ross.
Here.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Ariel.
Here.
Ride Finders, Ms. Tisdale. Mr. O'Keefe.
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Simmons. BDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. And Mr. Herman.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. Appreciate that. So we'll move on to approval of the, consideration of amendments to the action meeting agenda. Are there any to be proposed? The only one that I would bring up is that for the July meeting, due to the requirement that we have, is it a conformity meeting prior, Mr. Parsons? We have moved that up, the date up, and so we can discuss that at the end. But I would like to make that a change to the agenda for one of the last items. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Joe. Was that
Second,
Barb?
Barb.
Okay. So I have a motion by Joe Vidunas and a second by Barb Smith to accept the agenda as amended. Everyone in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Thank you all. The next item is the approval of the May 11th, 2021 TAC action meeting minutes. Were there any proposed changes to those minutes as presented? Okay, not hearing any. Do we have a motion to approve those May 11th, 2021 TAC minutes?
So moved. Barb Smith.
Thank you, Barb.
Second, John O'Keefe.
So we have a motion by Barb Smith and a second by John O'Keefe to approve the May 11th, 2021 TAC minutes. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, thank you all. Now we move on to the open public comment period. Mr. Parsons, did we receive any comments that need to be shared?
I don't think we have, no, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for that. So the CHAC chairman's report, I thought this was going to be my last meeting, but I think I might be filling in July. It's been a wonderful year. I can't thank Chet and Nicole enough for being so helpful and patient. And it's definitely been an interesting one. I do miss seeing you all in person, but I also really enjoy the not driving and these virtual meetings. So we'll see how that goes. I am going to share, Ms. Bueller, if you don't mind, I'm going to share real quick a couple pictures of projects that we've been working on for the entire year and that are just this month wrapping up. And so if you haven't been to Ashland, I like to, if you're in Richmond Region Tourism, they like to say that they got cool while you weren't watching. Well, Ashland has always been cool, but we're getting prettier. So that's exciting. Here's our new town hall. And you can see we have the pervious pavers just like we have in our municipal building. And we also are finishing up with the help of Amtrak a platform project. And so we were completely not accessible as far as people boarding the train. And so this project at our visitor center / train station has made it so that both sides are accessible and we have a lift on this side. And so all of that's done with new lighting, new landscaping, and fully meeting Amtrak's requirements, which there are, as you all probably know, there's a lot of them. And so if you haven't been to Ashland, come and hang out with us for lunch or a nice happy hour Thursdays at 6. I'm at Origin. Love to see you all. That's all. Ms. Bueller, you can bring the agenda back up. So the next item on the agenda is the TPO update. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. Those are great pictures. I'm looking forward to getting back up to Ashland. So the first item on the TPO update, 5A, is federal recertification. We are scheduled to have a joint recertification this August with Tri-Cities, and it'll be an arrangement where there will be a recertification meeting with RRTPO one day, and then I believe it's either a partial day or public hearings only the second day, and then the third day will be a Tri-Cities meeting. So working with Mr. Duran at Federal Highways and his team, we are starting to put together all of the materials that he's requested to start his desktop review. That'll be taking place, I guess, as soon as we can get him materials up until early August. And we are looking forward to working with Federal Highways and our state partners to get this recertification done and to do it well. And all of you are obviously invited to be part of that. And there will be more information forthcoming over the next few months. But I believe it was maybe August 25th and 26th. We'll get you the exact dates soon for when that recertification will take place. And so I don't really have much more on it right now, but just to keep that on your radar that it's coming up later this summer. The second item, 5B, is related to the boundary change. Last week, the policy board adopted a resolution that accepts the recognition by the state that the boundary can be expanded to include the entirety of Charles City, New Kent, Powhatan, and Goochland counties. And then the policy board is setting in place a plan to have that boundary change take effect on October 15th. That will allow the TPO time to get recertification complete, to complete our long range plan and have that adopted with the existing demographic data and everything that we've been working on for the past year plus. without having to go back and redo a lot of that work. And it really allows us some time to make sure we have everything in order and understand the implications of the boundary change on all of our work products and processes. So that will take place October 15th. And as far as we know, there's no other steps that are necessary. It'll just it'll roll in at that point, and we'll continue working. One of the impacts of that is that the Rural Transportation Program, I believe, was about $58,000 a year that went towards staff time to provide technical assistance to the 4 rural jurisdictions. We won't have 4 rural jurisdictions anymore, at least by the definitions. So that grant for FY22 will be prorated, is our understanding. We'll be getting more details on that over the next few weeks, but it'll be prorated to October 15th so that we'll be able to provide some technical assistance over the summer, at least for the next couple months. And that grant program will wind down as soon as the boundary change takes effect. 5C and D, the current work efforts and the CTAC report were both in your agenda. I'm not going to review anything in detail about those today, but I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any at a later point. And then the CBTA update. CBTA has been chugging along. We are working now to understand summer schedules and maybe make some adjustments of meeting dates over the next few months. But we're close to having everything in place for the authority to be fully stood up, is the language that's been used, including the transit governance report, the first annual GRTC regional public transportation plan that sets regional public transportation priorities, the annual allocation, local allocation reports. We're working on our second round of those, and starting to get into a somewhat of a routine in terms of understanding what's due when, and making sure that everybody is on the same page. Madam Chair, I believe that's it. If there's any questions, I could take those now or later in the agenda.
Now would be good. Does anyone have any questions for Chet? Well, thank you for that update. I know you guys have been busy. The next item on the agenda is the Richmond Urbanized Area Critical Urban Freight Corridor Designation. And I believe we have Sarah Rasmus. I apologize if I messed up your name, but we're excited to have you here this morning. I'm not sure if you've been with us before, but if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, this is my first TAC presentation. So my name is Sarah Rasmus. I've been with Plan RVA for almost 2 years now, but you know, most of that has been in quarantine, so haven't really been around. I am the kind of designated trains and freight person as of late, and I'm kind of new to this, but I think I'm getting the hang of it, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I'm going to just share my presentation with you all and talk a little bit about the critical urban and critical freight corridors. So bear with me, I'm gonna get this, okay. So if you didn't read what's going on or what I wrote in the meeting notes, just a quick overview. The critical urban freight corridors are designated from the FAST Act, and it's part of the National Highway Freight Program. They are a voluntary designation. And the purpose of them is to have a better allocation of smart scale money. What we're going to be talking about actually mostly is critical urban freight corridors, because we're in the urban area. This kind of is corridors that have regional significance and connect to the highway, connect to freight facilities, you know, your important highways, I guess you could kind of summarize. And what we have from OIP is a designation map, and ArcGIS has been a little goofy for me today, so hopefully it'll work. And what they have proposed is this portion in blue of a portion of 64 east and west, and this little section of 295 over in Henrico between Mechanicsville and this little part over here near White Oak. So these parts of these corridors have been designated as critical for freight in our area. They are roads that lead to warehouses, various other critical freight connections. Can everyone see this? I'm sorry, I didn't even ask.
We can see it, but if you're using a mouse, I'm not able to see your mouse.
Okay, I'm
And
sorry.
do you mind if I ask you a question while you're on this slide,
Yes.
since I'm already speaking? So the yellow here, if I can read it right, is what's existing, and the other is what's being proposed to be added?
Yeah, so yes, yellow is existing. And can you see this ArcGIS map? I'm sorry, I realized I didn't.
Yes, we can see the map and your mouse now.
So the blue is what is being proposed for urban freight corridors. The pink is rural freight corridors, but OIP is not asking for our opinion on that. They just want us to designate the urban sections. And then the yellow is what's existing as the primary highway freight network.
This is Barb. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
But there's a difference between critical urban freight versus the gold primary highway freight.
So the primary highway is just what they've already said as part of the primary highway freight network. The critical urban, I guess, is just a more specific designated portion of the primary highway freight network. It has to do with how they allocate the smart scale dollars. And unfortunately, this was really not explained to me specifically. I did ask. It was kind of a little gray area, and this is also not my area of expertise. So it just has to do with how they allocate the money for different projects. Did I answer your question?
Yes, but I thought when I read the summary that it said that it really didn't impact a project's chance of getting funding. It was more a matter of the behind the scenes programming at VDOT. So
Yes.
okay.
Yes, that's exactly as it was described to me by OIP. It is a programming practice, not a planning practice. So this is more their kind of behind the scenes background information, not necessarily directly related to projects.
And also it sounded like they're motivated to get as much as they're allowed to designated as critical urban freight corridors. So they've got that much more flexibility in using those specific dollars.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I shouldn't get all hung up that Route 10 and 295 down in Chesterfield isn't in there. It would be in there if they could get it in there, but there must be a reason it can't be in there.
Right, and I had actually suggested that to them, more of 295, just because of its significance in our region and connecting to like the Crater PDC. But they were not interested in changing their suggestion. And I think it's because they have a certain number of miles that they can designate. And the more miles we take up in our area, the less they have somewhere else that might be more important. So maybe for next designation round, we can suggest to add more of 295 to make that connection.
This is where someone should jump in and say that there are no more important miles than in our area.
We've already covered them all. Everything's important.
Sarah, this is Nora. I have a question about what we're being asked to do today in the staff
Yes.
report. And were you going to get to this?
I'm gonna let me,
Okay, then you keep going.
yeah, let me go back to my PowerPoint. And I'm so sorry that I'm not as fluid as with this. So yeah, so today I'm asking for approval of the designation. And I'll go back to this slide, just some of these like kind of noteworthy items. Again, this is voluntary. We don't really have to do this. I think OIP is motivated for us to do it because they can't really make the designation without our approval, or one of, I think, 2 MPOs that has to approve the miles in our area, us and Crater PDC.
Sarah, Nora again. So why are we only recommending approval of the CUFC and not the CRFC?
It's because of where they decided our PDC has power. And again, that was another thing that wasn't really explained to me, and I did ask, but something about the rural freight, they just didn't need our approval for that. They just needed it for the urban centralized area.
Okay, thank you for that.
Nora, the rural planning is under state's purview. That's why.
Okay, thanks, Sulab.
This is Barb. I have a question which isn't really related to this specific item. But what's the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board? That's like new to me. I have no idea what that is. I was going to look it up before the meeting, but I ran out of time.
I don't know. Some of this is information directly from OIP, and this is stuff that I really just couldn't find information on, and I don't know if this is a board that has changed name or if it's something that has been dissolved.
I'll look it up. I'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
So Barb, the WASCOG, Washington Council of Government, so that's like the PDC, our Plan RVA, and the National Capital Regions Planning Board is basically the MPO within that region. So it's basically MPO for the 3 states of DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. So it's basically the MPO for the Washington Council of Government, which is the PDC out there.
So why is that relevant to this agenda item?
Because it contains it contains the Northern Virginia portion of the MPO as well. So I think they designate those portions in Northern Virginia like we do in Richmond region.
Yeah, Barb, I think it's more of like an FYI. They asked National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board in 2017, and they did it. So they're just kind of giving you, I think, just an FYI that they've done it, and now they're asking us to do it.
Oh, okay.
Would it also be related to the maximum in your report? You say 75 miles or 10% of the primary highway freight can be designated. So is that maybe 19 of those 75 miles that can be allocated has already been used up?
I don't think so. From my understanding, I think, again, that's just kind of like an example, because what has already been used up is, I guess, 20 something miles of rural and then a little less of urban, if that makes any sense.
So I think what we need to do is just kind of trust OIP and support them. They hopefully are on top of it. I'm sure they are. And it is a bit confusing because it doesn't really seem to be intuitive when we think of them, the importance of freight networks, what's important, what's not, why isn't that included, why is this included? It has to do, I think, with the constraints that are put on the program. So I'll make a motion to approve this.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second to recommend to the TPO the proposed CUFCs determined by OIP? and approve those for designation?
Sharon Smidler, second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Joe Vidunas and a second by Sharon Smidler. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to clarify, the motion is, Joe, is the motion to recommend approval of the designation?
Yes, if that is what is being asked of us, then yes, that's my motion.
Thank you. TAC doesn't have the ability to approve it itself.
Understood, yes.
Thanks.
Ms. Mueller, if you could take roll call or take the vote.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The committee will now be voting on the approval of the CUFC designation. Town of Ashland, Chair Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Vice Chair LeDuc. I'll circle back. Powhatan County.
Sorry, Nicole. Aye.
Thanks, Kelly.
Uh-huh.
Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes roll call for item number 6.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. Moving on in the agenda. The next item is the FY21 to FY24 Tip Amendments, which is a request from VDOT, but Mr. Bushings will cover that for us.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of TAC. This is a requested TIP amendment from VDOT, and it's actually 2 new projects to be added to the TIP. So just a brief overview. Both of these projects are studies that were funded through the RSTP program. They were selected as part of the FY21 funding year, which was approved last September. And so now the projects are ready to move forward. We need to include them in the TIP so they can get started. And just as a reminder, for any new projects added to the TIP, we have to go through the 4 steps that you see listed on here. So we have to make a determination for conformity, demonstrate constraint, go through a public review, and then we have TAC and Policy Board review. So these are the 2 projects. This first one is the Route 360 Super Street study in Chesterfield County. Essentially, this project is refining the recommendations from a 2016 study for 5 super street intersections on Route 360. It's FY21 funding in RSTP, and it would be exempt for conformity purposes since it's just a study. As you can see, it's all FY21. The second study is also in Chesterfield County, and this is the Route 60 corridor improvement. So essentially, with this project, there is a Midlothian special area plan, which has recommendations for more of a pedestrian and multimodal character through the Midlothian Village area. The study would look at opportunities and improvements to implement that plan on Route 60. And again, this is exempt for air quality purposes as a study. It's FY21 funding, and the obligations are also FY21. So the action that we're requesting today is a recommendation to the Policy Board on the following resolution, and it's essentially that the Policy Board adds these 2 projects to the TIP, and further that these projects are considered exempt from conformity based on the conformity rule exemption listed. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about these TIP amendments.
Hey, Miles, this is Barb Smith.
Yes.
We've been waiting for quite some time to get authorization to start these studies. Do you know what's the glitch?
I'm not
these
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened on that. We only received the request recently to get it into the TIP. I believe there was some sort of delay, but they did tell us that you guys were waiting to get this started. And so we're trying to push this forward as quickly as we can.
I can speak to that, Barb and Miles, if you want.
Sure.
There was just a miss on VDOT side where The project coordinator several months back went to seek funding verification, and that would have triggered the TIP amendment. The programming section didn't realize these weren't grouped in the TIP, which we remember a few years back, we made an effort to group almost everything, but studies unfortunately can't be grouped. So the error was that the project coordinator, Mike Gray, was told, you don't need to start this yet, just wait until 30 days out, which for a grouped project would have been fine. These though require a TIP amendment. So it was a miss on our part.
Okay, I'll make a motion for recommending that the TIP be amended to add those 2 studies.
This is Joe Vidanis. I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Barb Smith and a second by Joe Vidanis to approve the resolution as included in the packet to recommend approval for the TIP amendment. Any discussion? Ms. Mueller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Town of Ashland, Chair Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Mr. Vidanis.
Yes.
Henrico County, Ms. Meidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Vice Chair LeDuc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
And circling back to DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. Thank you. That concludes the roll call for item number 7.
Madam Chair, may I say one more comment on that now that we've finished the item?
Of course, Liz.
Just, I should have said, we've got to actually have a meeting with management this coming week to figure out exactly how that, my synopsis is what we think happened. When I verify that is what happened and how to avoid that in the future. So I didn't want you guys just to think that it was a miss and we're just not looking at it.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, the next item on the agenda. Pulling mine up here is the draft RSTP and CMAQ guidelines. Mr. Bushing again is going to present this to us. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Miles.
All right, thank you. I couldn't get the unmute button. So this is, again, the draft guidelines. I presented these last month to TAC, and we gave you the last month to review and propose any comments or changes to the document. So just as a reminder of the process, the subcommittee was established last summer to guide this process, and the subcommittee met from October until April, a couple months ago, and voted at April to forward the draft guidelines to the full TAC for consideration. As I mentioned, we presented the draft last month and requested any comments from the committee members. Just as a reminder, the main goals of what we were trying to achieve were to update the scoring to reflect the new LRTP and the goals and performance measures that have been adopted as part of that process. We wanted to incorporate the TA set-aside program into our guidelines to have a little bit more of a formalized process on how we're selecting those projects. We wanted to define leveraging on how to use RSTP and CMAQ funds to bring in outside dollars from CVTA or Smart Scale in any other funding programs. And then also to improve our tracking capability here at the TPO so that we have a better handle on the projects separate and aside from what VDOT's also doing. So we requested comments last month by May 26th. We received a handful of comments and they have been included in the staff report. Some of the more minor changes, things that were more grammatical fixes, more minor non-substantive changes, we've gone ahead and incorporated in the drafts. It didn't really change the intent of what was being proposed. The more substantial changes we left out of the draft for TAC to consider as well today. So these are the minor changes that were either incorporated in the draft or will be handled administratively. So the first one was we changed RSTBG to STBG throughout the whole document. We've been using RSTBG for a couple years here, but in researching this, it appears that none of the other MPOs seem to have followed that direction. And they mostly just refer to it as STBG funding, which is the bigger pot. So to go ahead and match up with what the other MPOs are doing and with the federal highways language, we went ahead and just changed everything to STBG. So it's just Surface Transportation Block Grant. The other items on here is clarifying the limits on applications are only for new projects. Nothing was changed in the document, but that's an administrative side. We'll definitely make sure that that's incorporated with the applications. We added a link to the functional classification map. So there's a section where we talk about projects aren't eligible if they're on rural minor collectors or local roads. So we put a link to the functional classification map there, which is VDOT ESRI map. Clarification on the TA scoring, basically just clarifying how scores are normalized and a little bit more detail on that process. It wasn't clear in the language before. It just talked about we took the merit score from the state, but this is making it clear that it's normalized. So you can't get more than the 80 points range that's in there. Simplified some of the language in the allocation and programming section. And this was just essentially to clarify the intent. It was a little bit wordy and talked around itself. So we just streamlined some of that to basically note that the focus is that we're funding based on priority and then based on the availability of funds. So it's both pieces. Reworded one section for construction. So the language that had been in there before said that the only flexibility for cost overruns outside of the normal application period would be limited to construction bids that come in high. Since it was pointed out that sometimes there are legitimate increases during construction outside of the bid process, we just reworded it to say during construction and left it a little bit more flexible to give ourselves flexibility and also for you as the project sponsors. And then the last minor change that we included with the draft was there was a section in the obligation requirements that basically said you have to tell us a year ahead of time if you're not going to be able to obligate your funds on schedule. And we took out the 1 year since that's already putting extra pressure on you. We just changed it to as soon as it's possible. And that way we can still work with that. We can make changes as we need to in the programming, but without giving a strict 1 year deadline on that piece. So these were all relatively minor changes, didn't really change any of the intent of the document. So we felt it was appropriate to go ahead and incorporate these. We had two other more substantive changes that we did not incorporate, and we were going to leave up to TAC to consider as part of this overall discussion. One was a proposal. So there's a cap proposed on the number of new applications each cycle. So for the large localities, it was 10. For the smaller localities and the non-locality agencies, it was 3. And this was based on the applications that have been submitted over the past 6 rounds of RSTP CMAQ. The proposal was to reduce the large locality limit from 10 down to 8. And the intent of this would be to give staff less to have to handle, essentially was the proposal. And also the thought that if you're submitting 10 or 8, what's the likelihood that those last 2 projects are actually going to score well enough on the cost benefit analysis to be prioritized for funding. So that was the thought from the commenter on that one. The second piece, which we didn't incorporate, was that obligation and expenditure information should be incorporated with those quarterly reports that are proposed. So right now they're very high level. It's sort of where's the schedule, where's the estimate, what phase are you on, and what's your next big milestone, and what challenges are you expecting or encountering. And this would also include a little bit more information on what funds are obligated already and how much have you spent, which would allow the TPO to have better tracking of the projects. But this is also the information that VDOT's already tracking. And it doesn't necessarily hurt for us to have the information, but I think we can get it other places if we need to. So we left that one out as well and left it for tax consideration. So that's kind of the changes to the draft from what you've seen last time. So what's been proposed today is for TAC to make a recommendation to adopt this regional project selection and allocation framework, and that would cover RSTP, CMAQ, and TA funds. And then further resolve that we rescind the old project review and selection guidelines. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we just want to open this up for discussion for TAC.
Thank you, Miles. And I know you and the committee have put in a lot of hard work on this, so thank you for that too. Are there any questions or comments on the draft or for Miles?
Madam Chair, this is Diana.
Go ahead, Diana.
Miles, I just had a quick question about the number of applications and the limit. Was that, I can't remember, was that 10 applications for both of the programs combined, or was it separate?
It's 10 in total. So it's 10 total applications. So what we did was we looked at how many applications each organization had submitted. And then the benefit with the 10 is a lot of the applications are for both pots of funding. So especially from the larger jurisdictions, your CMAQ and your RSTP applications, if it's a bike ped project or a roundabout project, it's eligible for both sources of funding. So it still only counts as one application. And the way we've been doing it is those have been separate. So when we went through and actually counted based on the projects rather than the number of physical forms that were filled out, 10 was the average that we were seeing from the bigger localities.
Okay. And then that I guess the limit or the cap on that doesn't impact any like additional like funding opportunities or anything like that. So I guess just new funding, federal funding guidelines, all of it would fit in well with the 10 being the number.
So this would only be for new applications for RSTP and CMAQ. Anything that's existing wouldn't count against that limit. And I think that was the point of one of the comments we received, was essentially just clarifying that if you had existing projects that you needed additional funding for or needed to change the schedule, that doesn't count against you. And then any other funding source outside of RSTP and CMAQ, those limits don't apply. That's just for the RSTP CMAQ program.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Miles, this is Barb. I'd like to request that the quarterly reports be twice every year instead of quarterly. Did you have a lot of discussion in the subcommittee on that? We do a lot of reporting with VDOT already. So I hate to be adding more of the same. So reducing that to twice a year would be great.
So we discussed that at the subcommittee, and we talked about it 4 times, twice a year. And at the staff level, we were open to either side. I think we went with the 4 times a year because we were following what TA already has. So there's a reason we picked that number. It was off of one of the other programs that VDOT's administering already. But staff would be comfortable with twice a year as well. The goal is just, rather than putting everything at the one meeting in the fall, that we can have more updates during the year. So I guess the answer is, if TAC, the rest of the TAC is open to that idea as well, we're happy to change that piece.
Okay, fellow TAC members, twice a year, what do you say?
Aye.
Fine by me.
I'm good with that.
I'd have to say that's consensus.
Any other questions or comments? I know next year I'm going to say, man, I should have fought for 4 applications, because I think with Smart Scale we get 4 applications, and usually I just use that and turn them in.
Before I have a comment, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
So yes, I was the I'm the guilty party for suggesting that we reduce the applications from 10 to 8. This past year was, I realized, was an unusual year with reduced funding, but remember, there wasn't any funds allocated to new projects this last round. Just kind of keep that in mind. A couple other things. This is an annual process, so before you know it, it just seems like it comes back around every 12 months. It happens quickly. Some of the other programs that we all participate in are biannual programs. So there's twice as many opportunities, so to speak, compared to the other programs. And my feeling is that we will more than likely submit as many applications as we're allowed to. But the point is that the likelihood of application number 9 or 10th ranked project being funded is about slim to nil. And it just puts a burden on local staff, puts a burden on TPO staff, and it's just kind of an unnecessary exercise, really. I think 8 is more than sufficient. Put your best foot forward is what I say to everybody. Put your best 2 or 3 projects forward and make the best applications you can, rather than, I don't take this the wrong way. This is not directed at anybody, but sometimes I think the feeling is to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And I personally think a better approach is to be a more targeted approach and make the strongest case for your top 2 or 3 projects and promote those and hope that those are the ones that are funded. So I said my piece. Probably I said a little bit more than I should have in terms of my personal views on this, but I think 8 is more than adequate.
Thank you, Joe. And as not being a large locality, I would think that if you're told that you can submit 10, you're probably going to have to submit 10. Your boss is going to say submit 10. So perhaps we're helping you out by suggesting only 8. Anyone have a comment on that topic?
And this is
I
Liz. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to keep the large locality total at 10.
This is Sharon with Henrico. I agree with Barb with keeping it at 10.
Diana, City Richmond, I agree, keeping it at 10.
Liz, did you have something to share?
No, not anymore. Thanks.
Okay. How many do the large localities get 10 smart scale applications?
Yes,
Yes.
it's 10, but the population is different. The limit between large and small localities is higher. I think it's 200,000 instead of 100,000.
Okay. Did anyone want to fight for 4 for me? No, just kidding. I'm good with 3. Any other comments? Miles, do you have a slide by any chance that shows the, if not, I know it's in your staff report, the allocation? I think you did a really good job last time of explaining how it's similar to what we have now, the out year allocations.
I don't, but what I can describe it easily. So basically what we've done currently, our approach is you have 0 left in balance in year 1, and then it's about 5%, 10%, 20, 30, 40. So it ramps up over time. What we're proposing here is to give ourselves a little bit more leeway in the early years. So hold a little bit back in reserve and then still ramp up to the 40% at the end. So what we're going to do is 10% for years 1, 2, and 3, and then 20, 30, 40, just like we currently do. In terms of dollar amounts, it's pretty similar. It's about 24% currently that we hold back, and it would be 26% that we hold back. The benefit and the reason that we're proposing it is in year 1 and 2, it's pretty difficult for us to cover cost overruns. So if a project comes in and the bid is high, we don't have money left over in year one because we've been allocating all of it. So what we're doing, and this actually came at VDOT's recommendation, is to actually keep some money in reserve for year one. And then when we get to the next allocation cycle, make sure that it's all used up. So there's nothing sitting on the table as previous funding that's unallocated, because that would be an issue. But for year one, we can work with it during the year and make sure it's all used up by the end of that fiscal year.
This is Barb. I've got a question on that subject. So for this round of applications, the year that they'll get their first hit of money is probably going to be what?
So it would usually be year 3 or year 4, which is very similar to what it's been for the current program. And then anything that's surplus and left over in that year 1 balance before it becomes previous, and then anything that's surplus and previous from closeouts, we'd be using that to fund the study. So the thought would be try and use the earliest money to push towards studies, and then year 3 and out would be new projects.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm glad to see that we're not pushing the start of projects to the very end of this 6-year period. So that's good.
Yeah, that was the original staff proposal, and the subcommittee, that's kind of the compromise that we came up with, was a midpoint.
Anything else? I think my favorite part is the pre-meetings. I forget what you're calling them, but when we're going to be able to meet with staff in advance of filling out the application. So I know that's additional time for you all, but I appreciate that. Do you all feel that we're ready to take action on this to recommend approval of the resolution? Do you need more time to mull over it? Hearing crickets. Do you mind putting that slide back up, Miles? I think it's helpful in case someone wanted to make a motion to approve this resolution.
This is Dirona with the City of Richmond.
Hi, Dirona.
Hi, I make a motion that we just are my hard work on the subcommittee, that we make a recommendation for the following resolution that adopts the regional project selection and allocation framework for the surface transportation block grant and CMAQ set aside funds.
Okay, do I have a second?
Sharon Smidler, second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Dirona Clark and a second by Sharon Smidler to recommend the resolution included in the staff report, staff package, to recommend to the TPO policy board that they adopt the regional project selection and allocation framework as presented.
If I may, Madam Chair, just
Yes.
as amended as well by the TAC with the 2 times a year for reporting.
Oh, thank you, Miles. Yes, 2 times a year. I'm sorry I didn't write that down. Yes, as well as the project review selection and fund allocation process. Any discussion on that? Okay, Ms. Mueller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Town of Ashland, Chair
Aye.
Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Meidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Vice Chair Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RBA, Mr. Parsons. Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
And I'm going to circle back to Plan RBA. Mr. Ariel, would you like to cast a vote?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for item number 8.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller, and big thanks to the committee and staff for working on this. I know it took some time and effort, but we really appreciate it. And looking forward to see how it works out in the next round of applications. Next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 22 Regional Public Transportation Plan draft. Ms. Torres. Is Adrian on? Yes.
It's like she's muted. She's on, but muted.
Maybe she had to step away. Mr. Parsons, you want me to go to the next item and then come back?
That sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, the item I've been waiting for. So, no, I'm just kidding. So the next item on the agenda, and we'll come back to that update with Ms. Torres, is the election of FY22 TPO TAC officers. And so as you all know, it's a rotating chair position, and I've really enjoyed my time, but I'm ready to turn it over. And the next locality coming up to chair is New Kent County. And then following that as the vice chair would be Henrico County. And so we're looking for action to elect the FY22 chair and vice chair from those two localities to serve from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. Do we have a motion for those recommendations?
Barb Smith, so moved.
Thank you, Barb. Is there a second?
Irona.
Thank you, Dirona. So we have a motion by Barb Smith and a second by Dirona Clark to recommend the new chair and vice chair from New Kent County and Hanover County, sorry, Joe, Henrico County to serve from July 1 of this year to June 30th of next year. Ms. Mueller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Town of Ashland, Chair Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Vice Chair Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Chardine.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres. I'm going to go to Ms. Del Ross, GRTC, Ms. Del Ross.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for the election of the FY22 TAC officers.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. And I think Ms. Torres might be back on for.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that. I had to
No problem.
step away to answer a call.
No problem. So if you want to go
updates
ahead
for-
with your, actually, did you want to do the regional public transportation plan draft?
Sure. Let me just turn it. All right, just an update of what's been happening so far with the regional public transportation plan. The draft was presented to our board in May. We also have now gone through the full authority just as an intro, and it will go back to the full authority for final adoption at the end of the month. So we are progressing. As far as what the proposal is for FY22 is to, there's four kind of recommendations that we're prioritizing. First one is maintenance of service. So just making sure that our current service levels stay in existence as they are today. And the estimate for that is roughly about $20 million. The next is capital match. So leveraging using the CBTA dollars for local matches to kind of alleviate some of the requests for the matches with the jurisdictions. That estimate is about $700,000. And then the other two are studies, doing a microtransit study to further enhance the work that was already done in FY21, but looking more at just other modes of service, not just the traditional fixed route. And that study is estimated to be about $200,000. And then the fourth one is to do our FY23 study. So building on all the work that was done in FY21, looking at the study that will be completed with the microtransit and coming up with a new kind of prioritized list that hopefully can start to be implemented in FY23, working with all of the jurisdictions. That's our priorities moving forward. We are requesting to use our FY21 dollars to pay for the FY22 priorities. And a big benefit of this is that those dollars will already be realized since the fiscal year will have closed and we'll have all their accruals. And we plan on doing that practice over the next few years, just to make sure we have enough funds to keep our service going, as well as if we're putting any sort of enhancements in, whatever they may be, that we have funds to actually pay for that until the actual revenues kind of get leveled out and the projections are a little bit more accurate. So that is what we're proposing. Any questions?
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate that update. If there are any questions, we will move on in the agenda. The next item, we've already done the elections, are Transportation Agency updates. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Thank you so much. So Nicole has our agency update, and I think we provided quite a number of links related to our agency update for additional information. First item I want to discuss was our Transit Ridership Incentive Program. I think that in the past I provided this update just about the grant program, how it's available with two core components. One is focused on regional connectivity, and then the other is focusing on low income or zero fare, so fare-free pilots. So since I've been doing this update, we have been seeking public comment on the draft CTP policy. Public comment is available through June 18th. With the hope of having CTP action on June 23rd at their meeting. We are also seeking public comment on our draft program guidance through July 7th, and hopefully we will have a call for applications in July. Any additional information about the draft documents or about the program itself, including eligibility, you can find on the DRPT website at that link below, or you may reach out to me for any further questions. As always, I always provide a quick update on the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. Our next meeting will be held on June 28th. They are still doing the same work as I've been saying in previous meetings in terms of hiring and setting up the logistics for the authority itself, but we are making great progress on that. I believe at the last meeting, I provided a brief update on the statewide rail plan. At this point, there has been stakeholder outreach via email and through webinars to kind of start the conversation about this plan update in particular, plan background, overall vision, goals, objectives. So at this point, there is a public survey that is running through until the 13th. And we are hoping to use the results from the survey as well as all the outreach and feedback that we've received in order to start developing some draft projects and initiatives on the plan. If you are interested in filling out the survey, there's the link to the MetroQuest survey provided there. Last bit is kind of related to our FY22 6-year improvement program. I think we talked about last month about we had our joint public meeting on May 3rd with VDOT. We're hoping that we will approve our final SIP at the June CTP meeting. And then after the approval of the final SIP, then we'll start executing any contracts related to awards from our grant program. And with that, that's my agency update. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, moving on to the next update. Ms. Torres again with GRTC.
This is Emily. Adrian actually had to jump off, so I will jump in. She already covered all of the big points that GRTC has been working on. The only kind of remaining item that she didn't mention is our board meeting next week. So a week from today at 8 a.m., we will be having our June board meeting, and we, of course, welcome you to tune in on the YouTube live channel.
Thank you. Any questions for Emily? Okay, moving on to ride finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been busy here at Ride Finders. Now that things have started to open up, we have been able to be at some outreach events. We did participate in the Sports Backers Bike Walk RVA Crosswalk mural painting for pedestrians and cycle safety. We also participated at the Groundwork RVA Bellmead Community Center bike race. And I was able to attend a bike to school event at Cool Springs Elementary in Hanover County, where we had over 138 bicyclists come and either walk or ride their bike to school on that little rainy day. So it was good to see so many students riding bikes to Cool Springs Elementary. We celebrated National Bike Month, encouraging commuters and others to bike and commute for work and errands, etc. Promoted TDM week during the month of May from the 10th through the 14th. We launched our It's a Green Thing Clean Air campaign. We also promoted Virginia's Celebrate Transportation Day, which showcases each Virginia's multimodal transportation agency and all that's offered to its visitors and residents. We worked with other state DEM agencies and DRPT on how van pooling is going to look post-COVID. And we continue to work on projects with the City of Richmond and Tri-Cities, as well as GRTC. I know Ms. Torres had mentioned that. We're working with them on the microtransit project. We worked with representatives from DRPT, the PDC, VDOT, to get federal authorization for our fiscal year 21 CMAQ funding contract. We're also working with the executive director of the Central New Hampshire Planning District Commission on how Ride Finders outreach strategies and incentives are, how we do it here. And we're going to present that to a meeting to them later this month. And our executive director has scheduled the Ride Finders Advisory Board meeting for the end of this month. And with that, Madam Chair, that is the end of my report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. It sounds like you guys have been very busy.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for John? Okay, moving on to VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Thank you. Nicole, I need to send you another version. I found a typo as I was just looking it over. So, but really quickly for the CTB, for the May meetings, there were several workshops. I won't go through the whole list in the interest of time. Some of the ones that you might be more interested in, the transportation performance management for safety measures, transit ridership incentive policy, it's a draft policy, interstate operations and enhancement program, that's the 95, 85, 295, 64, that's the funding program for that. And then the smart scale round 4 consensus scenario. At the action meeting, they did adopt the round 4 consensus scenario. And what that basically is, in case you're not familiar, the initial scenario that was published is the draft raw score-based scenario. And then they meet with all the CTB members, they being OIP, meet with all the CTB members to do any changes that need to be made. And then that's the consensus scenario. So the CTB did act to approve that at the May meeting. The next meeting is, it's going to be, as far as I know, it's going to be an in-person meeting at the Richmond District Auditorium. Tiffany, you haven't heard anything different, have you? Okay. I was asking around yesterday, different people trying to figure that out, but we're pretty sure it's going to be in person at the Richmond District Auditorium. So the workshop meeting will be on June 22nd at 10 a.m. Following day will be the action meeting, the 23rd at 9 a.m. I think there will still be a virtual option, and I can confirm that if anyone's interested. Just let me know and I'll follow up with you. Next was SIP development. As I said, the smart scale scenario was approved. So that'll feed directly into the FY22 SIP. And just as DRPT, as Tiffany stated, we're anticipating CTB to approve the VDOT SIP at the June meeting also, which is on the 23rd. And there are currently no public hearings for any projects or willingness to hold public hearings within the TPO area at this time. And that's the end of my report, unless you guys have questions.
Thank you, Liz. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if you don't mind, Miles, there's a question in the comment box. If you could check that out. Is Miles still on with us? About how we now refer to RSTP funding. So I'll let him work on that while we move on to future meeting topics. So our list is getting a little shorter for this summer. Anyone have any suggestions to add to our future meeting topic list? Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is TAC member comments. Anyone else have pictures that they want to share? Other comments? Okay, so our next meeting is not July 13th. Chet, remind me, is it the 8th?
It is the 7th.
7th. Okay, let's try that.
It'll be the 7th at 8:30 in the morning. We are scheduling that because we have to have our interagency consultation for LRTP conformity that week. And we figured rather than have you all join us once in 2 consecutive weeks, we would just have one meeting. And hopefully everyone will be able to attend. So the conformity meeting will be at 8. The TAC meeting will start at 8:30. I think the plan right now is I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if we're going to be virtual or in person. I mean, I think we were talking about in person, but we see how that turned out today. So I think we'll have to send out updates as we get closer to that date, once we get more guidance on what the state's doing and the requirements that we have to follow as Plan RVA. But right now, the plan is the 8 o'clock conformity meeting, the 8:30 TAC meeting, and Nora's going to be joining us one more time as chair. So we can all look forward to that.
And I have bugged Chet multiple times this month to make sure that he knows that I would prefer that we stay virtual. But I understand that he has to work under parameters set for these public meetings, just as our council and boards do. He had mentioned that in order for that to change, it would have to go through a bylaw amendment, which, as you all know, is not an easy situation. I don't know that if this is something we discuss or we just say we've got to go back in person, and we all. I told Chet I used to have an hour of commute time scheduled on my calendar before and after, and that's gone away. And I've really appreciated having that time in the office to get work done, but I also understand that we have rules that we need to follow. And if the state of emergency is over, then perhaps we may have to come back in person. I don't know if anyone has anything else they want to say about that.
The only other question I had was whether an issue of quorum, right? So, I always thought about like how much Kelly would have to drive back and forth, or you, Nora, to come to meetings. But even after the state of emergency is lifted, would virtual presence still count in terms of a voting member?
And I think, I don't know all the answers, Tiffany. I think the answer is sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there's an allowance right now so that people can participate virtually if there's an emergency or if they got pulled away at the last minute, but I don't think there's an allowance for just regular participation virtually. So that's something we need to get into in a bylaws discussion with legal counsel to see if there is any way that we can make it optional or have people be able to attend in different ways. I mean, obviously it's been great this year because we've been putting everything on YouTube and members of the public can watch, and I think we've been more engaging being virtual than being in person, especially considering where the office is and people's ability to get here from downtown or Ashland or Chester or anywhere else. So we need to dive into that a little bit more.
If it's helpful, I know that Hampton Roads, their TAC, has in their bylaws some language about exceptions because they tend to deal with more kind of emergencies related to like hurricanes or flooding. I know that when I was serving for them, they definitely had some bylaw changes to help with virtual quorum in that case. So I'd throw that out there.
Thanks.
And I don't know if it's, maybe I'm the only person who likes virtual, Chet. I don't know if you've heard it from other people. And so I don't want to speak for the group. I don't know if it's worth taking a poll. You don't want to go through the effort of changing bylaws if it's just Kelly and I with this.
Well,
Laura, this is, yeah.
I think it's pretty clear. I mean, it was just Joe and I today, so that we're going to be here in person.
I mean, just, this is Liz from VDOT. I mean, our office, if it's, so VDOT currently, we're going into the office 1 day a week, but so if I commute from my office, it's 45 minutes, you know, similar to you guys' commutes. So if there's ever an option, I think that's, if we could have the ability to have, you know, both, I think that would be awesome.
This is Kelly. I agree. I'd rather stay virtual if we can.
This is Sharon with Henrico. It's nice to have the flexibility of both options.
Barb, same.
Brett,
Diana.
I agree.
Agree. Diana too.
This is John. You know, I was going to join you all in the office today, but I'm open to whatever the group decides. I'm flexible.
Okay, thank you all. Perhaps it's something we should add to a future meeting topic, the bylaws, Chet. I know you all have a lot going on, but maybe we can get an update next month when we may
Sure.
potentially see you in person.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you. So again, the meeting, do we need to take action or we approve the agenda with that? Do we need to do anything else for the meeting change?
Now we'll send out the notice.
Okay, so just a reminder, the meeting is set for 8 o'clock for the conformity meeting and 8:30 for the TAC meeting. And so that is a little bit different if you want to go ahead and add that to your calendar for July 7th, Wednesday, July 7th. Okay, so if I don't hear any other comments, I will move for adjournment. So we'll see you next month. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks
everybody.
so much.
Thank y'all. Have a good day.